If you're over 60 and still eating white bread, here's the issue. Even one slice can act like straight sugar, sending your blood glucose up quickly and leaving you tired, hungry, and inflamed soon after. The good news, you don't have to give up bread. You just need loaves that digest more slowly, keep your numbers steady, and actually help you feel full longer instead of drained. In this video, I'll walk you through 5 senior-friendly breads that consistently produce lower post-meal spikes, and I'll show you a simple label test, fiber, hidden sugars, and key ingredients, so you can spot a good loaf in seconds. We'll look at real products you'll see in most grocery stores so you're not left guessing in the bread aisle. And stick with me because the first bread looks like any ordinary loaf, but sprouting quietly changes how your body handles the starch, flattening your glucose curve and keeping your energy steady through the morning. What if your toast acted more like a gentle carb with protein built in? That's what sprouted bread quietly does. Sprouted grain bread, like Ezekiel 4:9, starts with whole grains and legumes, wheat, barley, millet, spelt, lentils, and soybeans that are soaked and allowed to sprout before baking. That short growth phase changes the starch and nutrient profile. You still get bread that toasts well and holds a sandwich, but with a slower rise in blood sugar and built-in protein support that helps you feel steady through the morning. Many seniors think whole wheat is enough, but if the flour is finely milled and the fiber is low, your body can treat it a lot like sugar. Sprouted loaves use intact or minimally ground sprouted grains, which means more structure for your stomach to work through. The chew matters. That structure slows how fast starch becomes glucose, which helps you avoid the quick surge and slump that leads to hunger soon after breakfast. Sprouted breads also show a significantly lower glycemic response compared with white bread, often moving from a high GI pattern into the medium range, and when the loaf delivers 5 to 10% dietary fiber, it can land below 55. Sprouting also reduces phytic acid, an anti-nutrient that can block mineral absorption. Lowering it makes minerals such as magnesium, iron, and zinc easier to absorb, important for bone strength, nerve function, and muscle health as you age. In fact, sprouting can improve iron absorption by up to 50%. You're not just getting fiber, you're making the minerals in the bread more available to your body, which supports muscle contractions, balance, and energy metabolism. There's more to the protein story. Because Ezekiel-style loaves combine grains with legumes, the amino acids complement each other to provide a higher quality protein profile with essential amino acids that support muscle maintenance. That's useful for maintaining lean muscle, especially if you're watching carbs and want each bite to do more work for you. Sprouting and using intact grains also slows starch digestion, leading to a steadier glucose release compared with refined white bread. When you shop, scan the label quickly. Look for 100% sprouted grains, with a whole sprouted grain listed first. Aim for at least 3 grams of fiber per slice, and keep added sugar between 0 and 2 grams. A short ingredient list is a good sign. If a loaf hides molasses or evaporated cane sugar high up on the list, put it back. You want the sweetness to come from the grain itself, not added sugar. Portion-wise, stick to 1 or 2 slices. Pair it with an egg, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, or a smear of peanut butter to add protein and fat. That combination slows digestion further and blunts the glucose rise, while the bread's own fiber and protein do part of the job for you. The result is a flatter glucose curve and steadier energy that carries you through late morning. If sprouting helps your body handle starch more smoothly, the next choice takes a different route, taming insulin demand even when the GI looks similar. Why does rye often trigger a lower insulin response even when the glycemic index looks similar? That's the rye factor. With 100% whole grain rye bread, you get a loaf built for insulin economy. Rye's unique grain matrix and dense crumbs slow how fast starch becomes glucose, so your body doesn't have to flood the zone with insulin. That matters if you're aiming to protect metabolic health without giving up bread you enjoy. Many people watch only the GI number, but insulin demand can tell a different story. For seniors, asking the pancreas to work less hard after meals can be a quiet win. Multiple studies show that whole grain rye and even endosperm-rich rye produce lower insulin-emic indices than white wheat bread. often around 61 to 73 versus wheat's 100, while maintaining similar or slightly lower glycemic responses in some tests. In practice, that means fewer sharp rises and a smoother return to baseline, which can help you avoid that mid-morning dip. Here's why rye behaves this way. Its fiber profile, especially viscous arabinoxylans, creates a thicker gel in the gut and can slow amylase, the enzyme that breaks starch into sugars. The dense structure limits how quickly enzymes reach the starch, so glucose drips out more gradually. You feel steady rather than wired, and your meter reflects that with a calmer curve. Research comparing rye types shows a clear pattern across trials. Whole grain rye and endosperm rye breads reduce post-meal insulin and produce a more favorable glycemic profile than white bread. Not all rye products qualify, though. Rye bran bread, white wheat flour with rye bran added, did not deliver the same benefit and even pushed insulin higher, with an insulinemic index measured around 128 in testing. The take-home is simple. The full rye matrix matters. Use a quick label check. Look for 100% whole grain rye with rye flour listed first. Keep added sugar low or none. If you see sourdough rye, you may gain extra help from natural acids, but the base must still be real rye. Target at least 3 grams of fiber per slice. Short ingredient lists are your friend, and if you can't find true whole grain rye, note that endosperm rye has still shown insulin advantages over white wheat in studies, though whole grain remains the stronger choice. Serve sizes count with dense loaves. Go with 1 to 2 thin slices. For stable glucose, pair with smoked salmon, turkey, avocado, or a slice of cheese. The protein and fat slow absorption further while the rye fiber does its job. You'll likely notice better satiety too. Studies link rye to improved fullness and reduced appetite later in the day, which supports both weight and glucose control. There's another lever you can pull that doesn't depend on the grain itself, how long the dough is allowed to develop before baking, and what that time does to the starch. What if time, not sweetness, decided how fast your bread releases sugar? Enter long-fermented sourdough. When dough rests for 24 to 48 hours with a live starter, the microbes reshape the starch and acids in ways your meter can see. This isn't a flavor trick. It changes how quickly glucose appears in your bloodstream and how steadily energy holds through the morning. Long fermentation means using a natural starter, wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria, and giving the dough a full day or two to rise slowly. During that time, enzymes and bacteria go to work breaking down some starches and gluten, developing organic acids, and building a tighter crumb. You still get a slice that toasts well and makes a sturdy sandwich, but the release of sugar tends to slow down. Here's the catch. Many supermarket sourdoughs are regular yeast breads with vinegar or lactic acid added for taste. Those loaves can look rustic and still act like fast carbs. If the dough didn't spend real time fermenting with live cultures, you miss the digestive benefits that support steadier blood sugar. The useful part is the organic acids made by lactic bacteria, mainly lactic and acetic acid. These acids can slow gastric emptying and make starches less available to enzymes, so digestion takes longer. That delay flattens the post-meal rise and can help reduce the quick spike that leaves you tired and hungry soon after. Research also shows that sourdough fermentation can lower phytic acid, improving mineral bioavailability. Iron, zinc, and magnesium become easier to absorb. In some studies, iron absorption improved by up to 50%, which supports oxygen transport, muscle function, and energy, key concerns as you age. Slow fermentation can modestly increase resistant starch and some soluble fiber-like fractions, especially after the loaf cools. More resistant starch means a portion of the carbohydrate resists digestion in the small intestine and reaches the colon to feed beneficial bacteria, offering a small additional brake on glucose release and supporting gut health. When you shop, scan for a few cues. Look for naturally leavened, wild starter, or long fermentation on the label or bakery card. Prioritize loaves that list whole grain or rye flour first. Keep the ingredient list short: flour, water, salt, starter. Skip breads with added sugars high on the list. A real sourdough doesn't need syrups to rise. Keep portions practical: 1 to 2 slices. Pair your slice with eggs, olive oil and tomato, or hummus. The protein and fat work with the acid-slowed starch to keep the glucose curve gentle. If you use a meter, you may see a smaller rise and a smoother return to baseline. Mini payoff. A well-fermented loaf digests more slowly, so your blood sugar climbs gradually and stays steadier. With time working in your favor, there's another lever you can add inside the slice itself. One that brings soluble fiber and gentle omega-3s to act as a built-in brake before the spike even starts. A tablespoon of seeds before a meal cut post-meal glucose in trials. So what happens when they're baked into your bread? Flaxseed or chia seed breads turn that preload effect into a daily habit. These loaves work for blood sugar because they carry soluble fiber and plant omega-3s right in the slice. That combo slows how fast carbs move from your plate into your bloodstream, which helps keep your energy stable and your meter calmer after breakfast or lunch. Here's the key detail. Seed-topped crusts look the part, but most of the seeds fall off or pass through without adding much fiber. The benefit shows up when the seeds are mixed into the dough or ground. Ground flax and milled chia expose the fiber and oils so they can do their job. Research consistently finds that ground seeds are more effective than whole because grinding improves bioavailability of the fiber and beneficial compounds. If a label lists whole seeds but fiber is low per slice, the bread likely won't blunt the spike as well. The science is straightforward. When ground flax or chia meet water, their soluble fiber and mucilage form a gel. That gel thickens the meal in your gut, slows gastric emptying, and makes starches less available to enzymes. The result is a slower trickle of glucose into the blood and a lower peak. In controlled trials, about 15 grams of ground flaxseed taken before breakfast reduced the glucose peak rise by roughly 17% and lowered the 2-hour glycemic exposure, AUC, by about 24% in people with type 2 diabetes. That serving delivers close to 5 grams of dietary fiber, around 3.5 grams insoluble and 1.5 grams soluble, enough soluble fiber to create a meaningful gel. Baking those seeds into the loaf helps you get a similar effect without adding an extra step. You can spot a useful loaf with a quick label scan. Look for flaxseed bread or chia bread, with flax or chia in the first few ingredients, not just sprinkled at the end. Aim for 4 to 6 grams of fiber per slice and little to no added sugar. A short list is best. If the first ingredient is refined wheat flour and fiber is only 1 gram, keep looking. The bread should earn its claims by the numbers on the panel, and the seeds should be part of the dough, not just a topping. Keep portions realistic. Use 1 slice for open-faced sandwiches, or 2 slices if you pair them with lean protein. Add turkey, tuna, eggs, or cottage cheese to bring in protein and healthy fat. Drink water with the meal. Soluble fiber works best when it has fluid to form that gel. If you track your glucose, watch for a lower and smoother curve compared with white bread sandwiches. There's a heart bonus as well. Flax and chia provide alpha-linolenic acid, a plant omega-3 that supports cardiovascular health, which matters if you're managing both blood sugar and heart risks. And if you're open to a grain-free seed relative that behaves well in the meter for different reasons, the next option adds fiber with a distinct set of compounds that support steadier post-meal numbers. The gluten-free label isn't the reason buckwheat helps your numbers. Its benefits come from fiber-resistant starch and polyphenols, especially rutin, that slow digestion and temper the post-meal rise. Buckwheat bread gives you that edge when the loaf uses real buckwheat flour, not just a sprinkle for marketing. The grain itself is actually a seed, rich in fiber and unique plant compounds that work together to ease the climb after you eat. Let's set the stage. Buckwheat breads and blends use whole buckwheat flour or a high buckwheat percentage mixed with other flours. Because buckwheat is naturally gluten-free and not related to wheat, many shoppers choose it as an alternative. But the real advantage is how its starch granules, fiber, and polyphenols create a thicker matrix in the gut, so glucose releases more gradually. You still get a slice that toasts and holds a sandwich, just with a calmer effect on your meter. Here's the tension. A lot of gluten-free loaves rely on rice starch, tapioca, or potato starch. Those can spike blood sugar fast because they lack fiber and protein. Buckwheat is the exception when it shows up in meaningful amounts. With substantial buckwheat, the fiber and resistant starch help slow absorption, so you don't trade gluten-free for a bigger spike. In trials, buckwheat-containing breads significantly lowered postprandial glucose compared with control breads, with smaller peak rises and better overall glycemic control. Buckwheat's glycemic index typically falls around 54 to 67, placing it in the low to medium range. Now the how. Resistant starch and soluble fiber in buckwheat form a gentler pathway for digestion, so less glucose rushes in at once. Buckwheat also carries polyphenols, especially rutin plus D-chiro-inositol, the richest food source identified, which has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity and help manage blood sugar levels. That combination can help your body use insulin more efficiently, a win for seniors aiming for steady energy without big swings. Studies on buckwheat-containing foods also report improved satiety compared with refined starches. People tend to feel fuller longer and report reduced appetite, which supports portion control and fewer between-meal snacks. That's practical help for both weight and glucose management during the day. Use a quick label filter to find the right loaf. You want buckwheat in the first two ingredients and a clear claim, ideally around 50% buckwheat or a stated percentage. Even breads with substantial buckwheat content below 50% can deliver benefits, but higher amounts tend to perform better. Aim for 3 to 5 grams of fiber per slice and little to no added sugar. If the first ingredients are rice or tapioca, starch and fiber is only 1 gram, it's likely not the gentle option you want. Portions stay simple, 1 to 2 slices. Pairings that work well include ricotta with a few berries, turkey with mustard, or avocado with a jammy egg. Fermentation can add another layer. When bakers ferment buckwheat dough, resistant starch and polyphenols can increase, providing an extra break on digestion without changing your routine. You've just fixed one of the biggest troublemakers on your plate, but bread is only half the story. The next place most seniors get surprise spikes is fruit, especially the ones that look healthy but hit your bloodstream like sugar water. Some fruits act like slow, steady fuel, while others can spike you almost like white bread, depending on how and when you eat them. If you choose the wrong ones, it's very easy to undo the progress you just made. If you want today's changes to actually stick, your next step is simple. Watch the video on your screen now about the 5 fruits seniors should eat daily to lower blood sugar and boost energy. Tap the video on your screen and keep your momentum going.